Back in 1990, Nintendo followed up on the popular Nintendo Entertainment System with what you and I remember as the SNES. That's right, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was the undisputed king of 16-bit home console gaming with over 49 million units sold worldwide. And it wasn't just the amazing hardware that was behind shifting all these units, no, it was the classic games, the dozens and dozens of amazing titles that you and I both remember as part of our childhoods. And for that reason today, we are going to be talking about 10 classic SNES games that you must play before you die. Okay guys, you know the rules by now. It's one game per franchise per genre. So without further ado, let's move on to our number 10, STARWING, or Star Fox, as you guys know in the States. This was the first in the series that sees you flying through the skies at high octane speeds, dodging obstacles, fighting enemies, and you're a fox communicating with other pilot animals such as a frog and a rabbit and things of that nature, of course. This is a linear game, but it gives you choices throughout, making you feel like you're exploring space as you want to. I've played through this game so many times, it gives me such great memories. The graphics look a little bit dated now, but for the time it was a huge graphical achievement, which is why it's our number 10. Number 9. Earthbound. This unique RPG has captured the hearts of many gamers around the world because it's funny, it's charming, it's weird, and it's almost deliberately crude in its animation. This has even been inspiration to the South Park makers, who said that they based a lot of their game, The Stick of Truth, on the way that Earthbound played, because it was kids being kids going through their neighborhood, doing the things that they wanted to do within this adult world. Unfortunately, at the time of release, Earthbound was poorly received both critically and commercially, but since then, it has attained a true and passionate cult following, and when you play the game, it's easy to see why. This charming RPG needs to be played, and it's still fun to this day. Number 8. Super Metroid. What's been fun about researching this list is I've been forced to go back and look at how these games have really helped to push the boundaries of what was possible on the SNES at the time, and Super Metroid is no different. It pushes the boundaries, but it manages to achieve a sense of darkness, a sense of alone and eeriness that you wouldn't think possible in a 2D platformer within 16-bit. Exploration is highly rewarded, and there's something to be found in every nook and cranny. Let alone that there's a really cool plot twist towards the end of the game, which I won't spoil, but I recommend you go back and play this extremely polished 2D platforming experience. Number 7. Donkey Kong Country. Now this game has a special place in my heart, and I can remember like it was yesterday when it was £50 in the Argos catalogue back in Christmas of 1994, which, as you can imagine, in today's value 20 plus years later, makes it a very expensive game. Now that was for good reason, because the first thing that stands out about Donkey Kong Country is the unbelievable visuals. It looks amazing even today. The way the artwork is done, it's so stylistic, but it really pushed the absolute limits of what was graphically possible on the SNES. As well as that, it had fantastic music, it had amazing level design with the battles, the runaway train, the underwater level. A lot of people prefer Donkey Kong Country 2, but I don't. I think this was the one that was the giant leap in gaming. Number 6. Street Fighter 2 Turbo. This game is an instant classic. This game is still talked about and played to this day. In fact, it's so good that developers decided to release it a grand total of 4 different times in various different incarnations on the SNES. So it's really just a battle of which one is the best. Now, after great deliberation and debate here at What Culture, we've decided to go for Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And the reason is, well, the increased speed and difficulty, the massively increased roster, and of course, bosses are now playable. As I said, this game still looks fantastic, it's great fun, and it's great for people who are picking up for the first time or for high level play still to this day, so go back and check out Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Number 5. Final Fantasy VI. The truth is, I could make a whole video in itself about just how great this game is and how it pushes the boundaries of the SNES, but I'll do my best to summarise it in this list. Because I was always a Final Fantasy VII guy, but looking back, it's easy for me to see why Final Fantasy VI is one of the most celebrated RPGs of all time. Now, the first thing that stands out to me is the leap from Final Fantasy V to Final Fantasy VI, because the difference is staggering, the improvement in gameplay and graphics. But that's not what really does it for me. The thing that stands out for me in this game game is the intricate and immersive storytelling experience, because think about this. There are 14 playable characters within Final Fantasy VI who all have their own stories going on that all center around this one epic journey. And there's also that twist in the middle of the game that gamers around the world feel is perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest twist in video gaming history. I could go on all day, but that should be enough for you to understand why that is number 5 in our list, and you should definitely go and check it out. Number 4. Super Mario Kart. You know, before this we were really used to Mario being somewhat of a platforming specialist, and I know he was a doctor and held Donkey Kong against his will and a few other odd jobs like that, but this was really the breakout game that showed that Mario could be a franchise player with whatever he did, because this was one of the best selling games on the SNES, and it's easy to see why. This game was multiplayer perfection back in the time. I remember it like it was yesterday, that split screen gameplay where you would play against one of your friends, and it wasn't just about the racing, of course not. It was just as much about those fun power-ups and weapons that you used to just annoy your friends who had beaten you with technique, but you just shoved a shell in their way and that was them off the track. That was half the fun in Mario Kart, and you know what? It's a formula that still stands up perfectly to this day. It's one of the best-selling titles on all Nintendo platforms moving forward, and again, it's easy to see why. Number 3. Chrono Trigger. You know, if you set up a collaboration between the creators of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Dragon Ball, good things are going to happen, and guess what? That's exactly what happened with Chrono Trigger. Now, again, this is similar to Final Fantasy VI. This is a level of storytelling and intricacy that you wouldn't think possible within 16-bit. And you know what? This is quite telling of Square overall during that period. Square were just absolutely on fire all throughout their duration on the SNES, and Chrono Trigger is a perfect example of that. You know, if you thought the storytelling was intricate in Final Fantasy VI, think about this. The amount of different endings that are possible in Chrono Trigger. Now, some people say it's 11, some people say it's 14. It's up for debate because there's different variations on the different endings. That's how intricate it is. Not only that, think about time travel in this 16-bit game. It's really difficult to summarize just how great the story is in this little clip, but I urge you to go back and try this game because it's one that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. It's something that is so ahead of its time. I mean, think about the battle system. No random battles whatsoever, but it's not done in a way that means you don't level up quickly. In fact, this is so well balanced that by the time you encounter various obstacles in the game, you're almost perfectly leveled up to deal with it. It's just a really smooth and immersive RPG experience that just doesn't get the credit it deserves. Number 2, Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World. You know, Super Mario World was a launch title for the SNES, and it was a fantastic platform and a great outing for Mario. But when you couple that with all the games that are within Super Mario All-Stars as well, you've got Super Mario 1, 2, the amazing Super Mario 3, and also the Lost Levels. You package that in with World as well, then that's almost just cheating. But back in 1994, that's exactly what Nintendo did. They bundled it all together and released it on one cartridge. And so for that reason, I'm going to count it as one game. And with all of that Mario goodness, how could you not have it right at the top? Well, there is one reason, and that is because there is one game that is so unbelievably memorable that even despite all of this Mario greatness, it has made it to number 1. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. When I even just mentioned the name of this game, it brings a smile to the face. It brings a smile to the face of my entire generation, because this was the game that you had to have. It was the game that everyone was talking about. This game sold more than 4 million units, and here's why. Because it was the perfectly balanced game. It had everything. It excelled at everything. It had amazing visuals. It had amazing music. It had action-packed gameplay. It had challenging puzzles. It had a truly immersive story. It really felt like this was just about as close to the perfect game as you could get. But it wasn't just that. Think about the moments. It's the magic. Think about the first time that you got transported to the dark world. Think about all the hidden secrets and Easter eggs. Think about the ending as well. This game will go down as one of the greatest games in history, and it was really just a crowning achievement for the SNES, and it just really summarized how great the console was and where gaming was going to go. This was just, in one word, magical. And that really is the best word to summarize just how great this game is and how special it is to so many people around the world. But it's also a great place to end this list, because it brings me to my final point. All of these games in their own way pushed the boundaries of what was possible in gaming at that time. So go back and play them. I've had an amazing time doing this. I've been Joe Hendry. This has been What Culture Gaming. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe the video. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so. It's at Joe S. Hendry. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.